Today, there's so much in our lives that influences us, our environment, the people around us. Sometimes we don't even know what's influencing us, and that's what we're here to talk about. Welcome to the Influence Today podcast with Chet Tart and Terry Lyle.
Welcome to another edition of Influence Today, and today's special because we're going to reveal a couple things, and we're going to reveal the brand new book that Terry Lyles is coming out. In fact, this is one of the few episodes I have to wear glasses because I can't read anything.
That's okay, man.
I can't see it. Chet Tart with Terry Lyles. How are you, Terry?
Great, thank you, Chet.
We've had some great interviews in the last couple of weeks, and we have some more planned and got some surprises. And in the last episode, you talked about something you're doing about water, and that should be very interesting also.
Yes.
But in the meantime, you sat down maybe a year ago, 2 years ago, and wrote a book called Performance Under Pressure. You definitely should get a copy of this book. It's due out maybe a couple days, September the 10th,
September the 10th, yeah.
And the reason being?
There's significance to September 11th. We didn't want to release it on that day, and that week or 2 weeks is a pretty good release date for books that are being published. So out of respect for the New York relief efforts and efforts that I put in years ago when
the people know that we should talk about. You were there at 9/11, correct?
Actually,
the week after.
No, interesting story. I was getting on a plane here in Lauderdale, flying to Detroit and then to New York. So I was going to Detroit to do a training for Chrysler, and I was leaving that next day to go to New York to go with Morgan Stanley, who was in the North Tower, and those buildings were hit that day. We were getting on the plane in Lauderdale, and they got us off the plane, and we had no idea what was going on. We just thought the plane was broken. They didn't really say anything. We got on, part of us got off, and then we all got off, and we stood there and watched both towers go down at Chili's in Fort Lauderdale Airport watching screen TVs. And about 10 days later, I was in New York when we could get there. Flights and everything that changed, and ended up
that must
going
have been
back and
scary
forth.
itself, just getting on a plane after that.
Well, the flight I took there after about 10 days, I think it was, somewhere in there, there were probably 6 people on the plane. It was empty. And it's the first flight I'd had in a long, long time, maybe ever, that I didn't sleep. Because I always sleep on a plane. I get on there and crash. I was awake, watching everybody's move.
I bet you were.
It changed your whole mindset. It was a 3-hour wait to get through TSA. That was before TSA existed, actually, just through security.
Right.
The world changed that day. So out of respect for that and the fallen fire rescue police officers, Port Authority workers, people that lost their lives, and not to mention the airline stewardesses and, pilots and passengers, which I talk about in the book because it so impacted my life. Actually, 9/11 so changed my life. I'm going to write something just about that alone because it was so life-changing to me. It really turned me upside down, and it ended up being a good thing. But after 3 months of going back and forth, working in that hole and working with fire and rescue and working with, the mayor at the time, which is Mayor Giuliani.
So what was your job? What was your job up there?
The stress doctor. I mean, I was there in the middle of all that, making sure that these individuals were taking care of themselves, because what would happen was, if you remember back, I can't believe it's been this long ago, but, it really has, right? They wouldn't go home. These fire rescue guys, they were out there trying to find their brothers, and they wouldn't take a break. They wouldn't go home. And everything I write about, even in Performance Under Pressure, is performance is measured in the speed of recovery. Mm-hmm. It's how quickly can you recover your energies mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically. And, we identified very early on these people were burning out, which makes your mistakes rate go up. You're in a dangerous situation. You pull the wrong stone out of a wall, the rest of a building falls under the ground because, remember, the railroad systems were down. And
right.
It's very volatile to work in dangerous situations when you're not 100%. And my job was to make sure that as I went around talking to these guys, are you eating? Have you hydrated correctly? Have you had any sleep? And I'd go to supervisors and go, I think John and Bob need out. And they'd be like, no, we're not leaving. We're still, we're here. We're committed. It's not about commitment.
How close were you to the actual buildings?
When it happened, I wasn't there.
No, when you were
doing this?
Coaching, yes.
I was in the hole. I was in the 16 block parameter that's blocked down with a gas mask on like everybody else.
I was going to
and
ask you,
fatigues.
what about the air?
It was awful. It smoked for 4 months. You could smell that place from LaGuardia Airport as soon as you got out of the airport. For 4 months. You could still smell it burning because it was so deep in the ground, and it just kept burning. And even though it wasn't an active fire, they couldn't get it all out because it was layer after layer after layer of asbestos and chemicals and rocket fuel that burnt other things. And I mean, listen to me. I still have some issues because of that after all these years. So long story to say why we're doing this on September 10th was because I wanted to be able to dedicate to those that, we spent time together the day after that.
That must have been powerful. And you say it changed your life. What awareness took place that you were able to see something different?
That was really the first disaster at that level I'd ever been to. That was really kind of the beginning of my career, changing from being a corporate consultant and trainer and speaker, talking about stress, to being involved in a disaster at that level. It was just eye-opening to me. I just didn't realize how it would affect me. I got home after the first trip back after the first week, and I walked in the door of my house, and at the time I had a little Shih Tzu dog, and it was like midnight when I got home, and I'm just beat up and I'm tired, and I've got my bag with me and gas mask and helmet, and just you walk through the airport and people look at you like, oh my God, where were you? I look like I just came out of
the mines.
So, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I got home, and my dog ran to the door and greeted me, and just like yesterday, I knelt down to touch him, and I just lost it. And it was the first time in that week that I had allowed myself to feel what I saw.
The environment does affect you. We talk about that a lot, about
it's huge.
That your willpower is not as strong as that environment that
No.
affects you.
And the emotion is so powerful of the loss of life, the tragedy that you can see. As soon as we got into that environment and looking around, it looked like we were in a war zone. Every building on a 360 radius was blown out.
Yeah.
And it was eye-opening to the fact that we live in a new world. And that was before Homeland Security. So Port Authority didn't talk to police. Police didn't talk to fire rescue. The mayor's office was trying to talk to all of them. And it was just, it was a fiasco. I mean, everybody had control, but no one had authority. You know what I mean? So it was that whole thing. But out of that, what good that came out of that was Homeland Security. It spun out of that under President Bush's administration. And, we were involved in some of that to say, look, we don't know who we're talking to. We can't get information from here to there because you don't talk to them and they don't talk to you. And so, thankfully, good things come out of tragedy.
Did it change the way you coach people too?
Absolutely. It really, the first book I wrote was in 2003. And that was just 2 years after that. And the last chapter I wrote in that book was called Living with No Regrets.
Mm-hmm.
And I wrote some of that even in this new book, Performance Under Pressure, because it changed my mindset forever, that I'm going to live every day as if I was on one of those planes and I never came back.
So this book, Performance Under Pressure,
Mm-hmm.
would you say that 9/11 had a lot of influence
Yes.
on these chapters?
Yes.
And so you decide to write it with a foreword, with the foreword's written by, let me get my glasses again,
Major General Rob Worley.
Worley. And he's a retired Major General of the United States Air
He was
Force.
a two-star general, retired from the Air Force.
How'd you get to meet him?
I was called upon to go do some training for Air Force fighter pilots, and he was the commanding officer in charge. And I did a training for him, and we developed a relationship, and I ended up training almost 10,000 fighter pilots over the years.
It's like a race car. It's the same as the race car.
Same as the race car.
You're right.
Yeah.
What are they thinking when they're
That's
in
correct.
That, right?
It was the same kind of thing. And then he General Worley left there, I believe he could correct me on this, but I believe he was a 1-star general at that time. Went to the Pentagon and commanded forces there as well, and became a 2-star general. And then I started going to the Pentagon, training Pentagon staff under him on the same thing. And we just developed a great relationship. But the foreword of this book is so powerful. The reason I asked him to write the foreword, and he's okay with it because you can read it, but there was a tragic situation that took place in his home where his, I think she was 21 at the time, Gracie. She lost her life, took her life, was murdered, we're not really sure, in their home with a 10-month-old son. And we were able to work through that. And his son, or his grandson that they have now adopted, is the age of my son, Braden. They're both 6 years old. So we've walked through this parenting thing together.
Oh, I bet, yeah.
And his wife, Lori, is a PhD that worked for the DOD, government official. They're just phenomenal people. But the foreword of this book and his story is so riveting. My publishing group, like 6 different editors, were asking me, are you sure he's okay with us writing that much rawness?
I was going to say, was it raw?
Very
raw.
Yeah, so I'll leave it to you to read it and the others to read it. But I said, well, yeah, he signed off on it, so that's what it is. So really proud of that. And, a lot of good people that I've been able to work with. Tim Sidrick, who's the president of Penske Racing, is a part of this as well. I can go on and on of people that so influenced me, and I was able to be influential with them, to put this book together. I think that's the best book I've ever done. I'm so proud of it. It took almost 2 years because there were just challenges that were going on, and the publishing world has changed, and I actually write. I don't have people write for me, so it's very cathartic for me. So I was telling somebody the other day, it was like birthing an elephant, which is 94 weeks versus 40 for a female. Human being, but it's good, and I'm very excited about it. We're just really excited.
I'm excited about it too, to get into it. The Major General, when you met him, what characteristics does somebody like that have compared to somebody in the corporate world or even an employee? Tell me the level when you meet these people. These people are at different levels, think differently.
Oh, yeah.
What are the sustaining characteristics that they have of leadership? What have you noticed?
Unyielding commitment to excellence. That's what I would say. Every military officer I've ever worked with has this character trait. His dad was a 2-star general as well in the Air Force, and crashed and lost his life in Vietnam as a fighter pilot. He should have never been flying a plane, but he was so passionate about flying. He was shot down and was killed, and Major Worley was probably 12 years old at the time. Mm-hmm. He also became a 2-star general in the Air Force. His son, Creighton, is a military officer in the United States Marine Corps. And there's a level of excellence. I remember the first time I stood...
that every human being actually has.
It has.
What I'm saying, he's not that special other than the fact that he's taken his gift.
He was inspired and influenced by his dad.
Okay.
And that's what it comes down to. And I write about this in the book, about how important it is to know what inspires you. Because if you know what inspires you, nothing can stop you. Not even death. Because there is such a thing called life after death. And you can kill me, but I'm still going to live forever. So knock it out. Mm-hmm. That's why I don't fear death now. That's what happened at 9/11. When I went to the tsunami in 2004, it was reiterated. That's what gave me this ability and courage, and I don't really care what happens to me within reason. I know I can help those people in that situation. That's what these guys taught me. And I learned it by watching them. And the first group of pilots, fighter pilots I stood in front of, there were probably 200 of them in a room in an auditorium, and I did my piece and I got finished. And a guy that was in charge, a commanding officer in charge, was the base commander. And he walked up to me and he thanked me for being there. And, I walked down off stage and he shook my hand and he put a coin in my hand, a flight coin, which means,
Challenge coin.
you did something for us today. You're one of us. And it changed me as well. Okay. It was one of those moments where you just wow, I can't believe that it just happened. And I actually created a coin years ago, and it is a challenge coin. That's what they call them. And mine is on one side, on the head side, it's good stress, which I have in the book. And it says challenge. And you flip the coin, and it's bad stress, which is a threat. So anything that we see as a threat in our lives, we just need to know we just need to flip the coin, and we can turn that into a challenge. Not eliminate it, but turn it into a challenge. So Performance Under Pressure, title of the book again, is how do you perform under all kinds of pressure: divorce, remarriage, parenting, stock market crashes, whatever it is. We're all similar, that we're human beings trying to navigate life storms, which was the title of my first book, actually, The Secret to Navigating Life Storms.
The title of the book is not as strong as just what you said, because my understanding now is that we all have some kind of, how do we perform under the pressure?
Yes.
The other question I was going to ask you, after meeting these special people out there and then meeting other people, what is the missing link that we could offer somebody that could say, you're at 40% of your max when you could be at 99%? What is there anything we can do that, or is that just their bloodstream?
Sometimes it is a bloodstream, as you would say. Some people are just wired in such a way that they have an intuitiveness that helps them connect. Most of us.
I see people walking around, I call it the BCD, blame, complain, and defend. It's never their fault.
It's the majority of the world.
And it's like this big thing on their shoulder all the time, BCD, all the time.
And, the majority of us need coaching.
I agree.
And mentoring.
And I also believe that as a coach, I need coaching too.
Of course.
Because it just opens the world of your blind spots.
Look, I've had such great coaching and mentoring in my life that has helped me be who I am, and I'm still getting that same coaching.
Yeah.
I talked to one of my coaches and mentors the other day just of things that's happening in my life now and what we're doing and the changes, and it's just life. Gravity happens, right? And it's just so powerful to have people around you that can see what you can't see. We've done this on this show before.
But it's good to
people
repeat
see
it.
your blind spots.
Yeah, it's good to repeat it because repetition is how we learn.
Yeah, and so it's answer your question. I think the key is just knowing that we're only about 6 inches away from that, and most of it's between our ears and the short distance between our ears and our soul, wherever our soul is, because it's not our beating heart, but it's in there all about us. And if you can, unfortunately, it takes tragedy in most cases to make those kind of changes, unfortunately. And that's what happened to me at 9/11. It was such an overwhelming experience that I realized that even in the midst of serving all my life, from the time I was 21 years old, serving at some level, that I could go deeper. I could go deeper in myself, which meant I could go more broad with people around me that I've met.
That's good. I don't think we know how to do that. Maybe during the next couple of episodes you can talk to us how we can take ourselves deeper. We can talk about the importance of a coach and how things would change. And I'd like to go through the chapters in the future podcast, because
we'll go through
the
them.
Names of some of these chapters are unbelievable. And I think that if you're looking to go to another level, you just got to pick up the book and go through these chapters, and maybe you could help us take a look at it.
And it's replete with stories, because I really view my life, existence, and I'm sure you can too, because it's storytelling.
Yes,
what happened
exactly.
to you? What changed you? What influenced you? And it's stories, and the book is full of stories of good, bad, and ugly of what goes on. But I thought of something when you first brought the show on just a moment ago, as we wrap this thing up. And, I would really like to challenge viewers and listeners. If they have an idea or a thought of something they want us to cover, contact us.
Yes.
Reach out. We'll put them on. Reach out to us. Get a hold of us. Hit us and go, you know what? I know somebody who's an influencer that changed my life, that influenced me to that point. I want you to talk to them. Or maybe they're the influencer.
And maybe we could talk to them and how they were influenced. Yeah.
And that, to me, that's performing under pressure. I love it. You do, because you've been on live mics and film for years as well. and it's a very cool thing to do. And then at the end of the day, you lay down and you go to sleep and you say, Lord, if I don't wake up, I left everything I had on the dirt today. I left it right there.
Great. This has been a great interview, Terry. And when we come back, I want to get into the book deeper.
Sure.
And I
Love
think
to.
you need to pick it up. It'll be out in a couple days. It's September 10th.
And you can go now under TerryLylesStore.com.
Will it be on Amazon after that, right?
It will be. Yeah, they do all the legal dates, but I think by the 10th of September, it'll be everywhere. You can pick it up. Southwestern Publishing is my publisher. They're fantastic people. They were so good to work with me, and I actually offer the other two things that we give away, Caught in the Crossfire and Caught in Nature's Path. So also on TerryLylesStore.com, those are free PDF downloads. So if there's a school shooting, a terrorist attack, if there's a natural disaster, an earthquake, a hurricane, a tsunami, those are free downloads. Those are 30-page documents each that we give away for free.
Wow.
So it's all there. So go there if nothing else. If you want to buy the book, gift it to someone, that's great. If you just want to download the other two pieces, that's fine too.
Thanks, Terry.
You're welcome.
You've been listening to Influence Today. We're on iHeart, iTunes, Spotify. We're on a few other places, Lisbon.com also. And if you like the show, we really appreciate if you would click like, and we'd like you to share it if this has been an impactful thing for you, or if there's something that you think a friend or a relative could get out of the show, please share it with them. Because remember, the environment is really strong, and what you share with people is powerful. This has been Influence Today with Chet Tart, Terry Lyles. We'll catch you next week.